Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Creating the Curve. So, what I'm going to be doing is that every other week with these shows, I'm going to have a wonderful guest, and then I'm doing a short little episode in between, just a little roundup, wrap up of the topic before. And if you've listened to my first episode, you'll know that I had the wonderful Robert Bentley on, and he was talking about grant writing. And the reason I had this as my first episode is, my goodness, grant writing is a minefield, isn't it? It's stressful, it's difficult. I mean, even to find the grants is incredibly difficult. And so I thought I'll have that on as my first one because I know it's a huge issue that people are suffering with at the moment, particularly in the sort of technology STEM industries. So Robert and I talked a lot about the sort of writing process in the last episode. Robert is a grant writer who's written a book, grant writing, under his pseudonym Donald Melgren, and which is an excellent book. I have it on my shelf. I can spot it there, and it's it is a real difficult art form, I think, grant writing, because you're trying to appeal to what the person that's sort of supplying the grant, what they want and what they need. But my advice is to start with that before even grant writing. Start looking at your marketing. Are you talking to your audience in your marketing? Because if you're not, you'll probably follow through with the same tactics when it comes to grant writing as well. Because as an ex-marketer, I find grant writing and marketing are quite similar. They have the same sort of way that you need to write to the audience. You have to do similar sort of research. And what I find is that particularly STEM tech and techie, complex businesses will write grants similar to how they write their websites and their marketing materials. So think about your website and your content. Do you have a lot of we and us in it? Do you talk about yourselves a lot? Is there a lot of technical specs on there? Because what I find is a lot of websites, and it's not just confined to technical industries, it's confined to most industries. They're sort of like what we do, who we are, and it's a lot about the company. But in marketing, the better approach, and often people don't tell you this, the better approach is to and the right and the approach that's most effective is to write to the audience. So instead of talking about your products and service first, you talk about the audience, what's their pain points, what's the difficulties. And I find if you start getting into this mindset with your marketing, when it comes to grant writing, you've already got the right mindset and you've got the right processes. So this is a nice exercise I like people to do before there's even a grant that they want to apply for. I'll get them to look at their marketing first, because what you should be doing is you should be understanding your audience. What is it that's causing them pain? What is causing them difficulty? Because the point of your software, your service, your product, is that it should solve their problem. So it's not so much about the product itself, it's about what that product does for them. So for example, say for example you're an accountancy software, and your audience is maybe accountants at small businesses, and you've got poor old John. He's this accountant at small business, and at the end of each month he spends 3 late nights trying to reconcile everything, trying to get everything to match up. It's all of a bit of a mess, and he's really frustrated. He's missed dinner for all those nights and ends up having a sandwich at midnight. He's missed his episodes of Pointless, and he's thoroughly miserable, and he really doesn't look forward to the end of the month coming. So say, for example, you have some accounting software that could take that all away. It looks after everything so that when it comes to the end of the month, it's much more simpler for him. He presses a button, it sort of organizes everything. It helps him out. It means that his boss gets his report earlier than he'd ever expected, and then he gets home on time. I think that sounds wonderful. And now, if I was John, I'd want that software. I'd want to get home on time. I would want the less stress. And do you know what? It's going to look really good in front of his boss. So he might get a promotion. He might get a raise. He might get a little bit more money. Might get a bonus. Even in B2B, when people do B2B marketing, they think about marketing to a business. But what actually you need to do is market to the human at that business. So this poor John, it's not actually about the company he works for. He works at a big logistics company. It's not just about that company. And obviously there are benefits to the company. So for example, if he's spending less time on this sort of task that he had to do quite manually, then he can spend more time looking at cost saving, at spending wisely, doing the sort of financial strategy, which is going to benefit the business in the long run, might save them some money, might help them with cash flow better. He's spending money in the right way, so his boss is going to be really pleased with that. So there's this knock-on effect. If people are doing their jobs well and they're doing it in the least stress places and ways possible, then the business benefits from it. So you've got this sort of double wins. And when you're doing your marketing, this is what you lead with. You lead with these pain points, you lead with the difficulties, and then you talk about how you're going to solve them in this software. And that isn't a list of technical specifications, it's key features and ways that it might help. I'm not saying don't have your technical specifications on the website somewhere. They are useful for people that want to know the ins and outs, people like me that will read every single page and devour all the information. I'm a bit obsessed with software. So, but people, or if you've got a service, have some details, some full details of what the service entails, have some information, but don't lead with it. Lead with this pain, how you're going to solve the pain, and then you can go a little bit more into the sort of technical side. Because what this will do, and this exercise is great, because when there's no grants on the horizon, you've done this exercise, you've got used to understanding and researching the pain points of the customer. You've got used to how to translate that into wording, and then you've created some texts and some sort of wording around this sort of how you're solving the pain. So when it comes to grant writing, you've kind of got a process and a skill set there that will help you with the grant writing. Because when it comes to grant writing, and Robert discussed this, you need to understand why they're offering the grant and what the outcome they want is. And it's not always obvious in the grant. So for example, if it's a local council, they may sort of talk about some outcomes, but what you need to do is maybe go on the council website, look at what they want to do, their goals for the year. What is it they're trying to achieve? So the sustainability goals, employment goals, economic goals. What is it that they are trying to achieve? Because a grant will be, the point of a grant is to take people like a local authority or that towards their end goals. So there will be some reason that they're doing it. So for example, if it's sustainability, talking about how you might forward that sustainability initiative whilst keeping on point of the grant, within the context, how might this bring them towards the goals? Because local authorities, government departments, they're similar to businesses. They have bosses, they have reports at the end of the year, they have these sort of things that they need to achieve. So when they're reporting to the bosses at the end of the year with their KPIs and their goals, they need to tell them that their grants that they've awarded have got them towards these goals. And if they do, their bosses are going to be happy. And if they don't, they're not. So you need to tell them that you're going to keep the council, the government department happy, and they're going to look good because they have reached the goals that they need to get to. So you can see how they're very, very similar. You're thinking about the government department, the local authority is the similar to the business, and then the personal people awarding the grant is similar to your sort of individual customer that you're marketing to. And then with the grant, answer it and make sure you answer it properly. And Robert always makes sure that he reiterates this, that you have to answer the question and you have to answer the points. So what I've found is that people that are used to talking about the product or their product or service may in a grant just go straight into the product or service without talking about the pain points, what they're trying to solve, how they're trying to move the department towards their goals. So they will go into a technical spec and we do this, this is what we do, without the this is the problem we're solving. So you can see why practicing it in your marketing means that you can bring this sort of similar mindset. Now, marketing and grant writing is different, and it is, grant writing is can be a bit of a dark art, but if you're practicing this mindset of making sure that you're thinking about what the person wants, what they're asking for, it takes you outside of the company. A friend of mine, John Asperian, who will be on a future episode, he told me the saying about you can't, I think it's you can't see the label from inside the jar. And these sort of exercises of putting yourself out, so it means basically if you're in a business, you can't see it because you're too close to it, you're too inside it. So if you put yourself in the other person's shoes, if you get used to putting yourself in the other person's shoes, you can get to know their mindset and get to understand it, and then you can follow it through from grant writing, tender writing, you know, through your marketing material, through everything. Everything needs a similar mindset. And then with grant writing, Robert always says, make sure you read the grant. What are they asking for? Make sure you've answered all of the points and all of the questions, because it can be really easy to go back inside the jar and sort of talk how you've always talked about the product or the service. So make sure, take yourself outside the jar, read it thoroughly. What are they asking? Highlight what are the questions that need answering, so that you're making sure you're answering them. And just practice. You won't win all of them, but don't be disheartened if you don't, because that was practice, and then you can refine it. You can always get people like Robert Bentley offers a service where he can look at your previous grant writing grant applications, and he can sort of tell you what give you some guidance and what might have been improved and what you could have done differently. So maybe do a wash up afterwards if you don't win one. And the other area that's really important is, as well as writing them, is the finding of grants. So we talked a little bit about that in Robert's episode, and I sort of just want to reiterate that you have to kind of look around. So I'm really lucky that the work that I do with Fairham Innovation Centre, I get access, Oxford Innovation Space have access to Grant Finder, which means that I can find grants for the customers there. And Grant Finder is brilliant. It sends you alerts of new grants and really good grants. It's got a really good, robust database for them, but it isn't cheap. So if you're a small business, you may struggle with it, but you might be able to find an organization. So for example, like I said, anyone that is based at Fairham Innovation Centre or actually any of Oxford Innovation Spaces centres can get the centres to look up grants for them. But if you've not got a centre that you're based at like that, see if there's any other services that can look up grants for you. There are free databases. I think there's one. So this is Grant Finder. I think there's one. I think it's called Find a Grant. I think that might be free or cheap. Look at, if you work with a local authority, look at local authority sites. Look at the sort of government websites. I find if you're in specialist niche areas, look at what clusters and groups you have near you. So up in Fareham, there is a wonderful, it's the South Central Regional Security and Defence Cluster. So if you're in security and defence, that's a brilliant one to join. And there's not just one there, there's one in Southwest, there's ones in lots of different areas, because those some of those clusters get quite a heavy government and local authority activity in them. So you can sort of connect. So for people that are in defence and security in those areas, you can connect with people that might be able to tell you what grants are available. I see quite regularly on the LinkedIn group for the South Central Cluster Defence Cluster that There's not just grants, but like opportunities, tenders that get posted on there. So, even if you're not looking for grant, tenders can be posted on them. And there tends to be clusters and groups for quite a lot of industries. There's from arts to technology. You might not always have one directly where you are, but you might have one in your area. So like the South Central one covers quite a few counties. The Southwest one, I live in Bournemouth, and that covers that area going down to sort of Devon and that, I think. So look at your area and see if you can find clusters or groups that are very active and have that sort of government involvement or local involvement, because they are really good places. With our local clusters of defence security, DASA, the Defence Accelerator, is also very active, and in fact they were the ones that helped set it up. So they have lots of initiatives and sort of grants competitions that people can take part in. So they will post in the groups as well. So look at those. Look at your local authority website, see if there's any mailing lists that you can get on, so that you're not constantly looking. And what I do, if there's something like grants that I'm looking for in a particular area, I will have a little folder of bookmarks so for example, in Bournemouth or Fareham, I might have like the local authority grant page, the government grant page that I want, LinkedIn group which regularly has grants. I'll have them all in a little bookmark folder in my sort of Google Chrome. And what I'll do is, like, once a week I'll just click on them and just flick through all of them to just see if there's any new ones or any updates, because that makes it easier than hunting for the web page each time. So like I might have a little folder called grants, and it's the ones that I want to look through regularly that might have something that might not be on Grant Finder. So make it really easy on yourself. If you are looking for a grant, bookmark those pages and just keep once a week or so look through them. Also, I mean, networking events are quite good, because a lot of local authorities put on local networking events, and governments do as well. So have a look at specific ones. I know, going back to defence, there's a defence networking down in a wonderful one in Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, and you get lots of big companies there. And it might not be grant funded. You might find someone working on a tender that like a big company that wants to partner with a small innovative business. So you might find some interesting leads there, not just from grants. So yeah, I would say with as a small business, get your finger in all the pies if you can, and get your name out there. I find the biggest benefit to small businesses is getting your name out there. It can be really hard if you're particularly, and I know I'm from STEM, I am actually naturally an introvert. I know I'm doing a podcast, I'm naturally an introvert. I used to be, and no one believed this, I used to be really quiet when I was younger. I've done a degree in computing. I started out as a programmer, and it's just been 25 years of practice to be able to do a podcast and to get my name out there. But I find if you get your name out there and people know that you're looking for a grant, or you're looking for a tender, that things will come to you as well. People will go, oh, I think this is up your street. One of the customers I knew, one of the customers at the Innovation Centre was looking for grants and funding, and I had this one that popped in from Grant Finder in my inbox. It was a really niche grant, but I knew what their business did, and I understood what they were looking for, and I just popped it over. I said, I think, would this fit you? I think it might fit you. And I knew, because it was niche, and the niche of the grant, the easier they tend to be to get, because there's a smaller pool of people that can apply for it. So I popped it over to them and said, oh, I think this might be up your street. And they were like, oh, it is. And they hadn't seen it. So they were on grant finding applications and it hadn't come through to them. And they were like, we're going to apply for it. And they applied for it and they won it. And it was a really good chunk of money that they won. And it was fantastic. But, if I hadn't known them and I hadn't understood their business, I would not have forwarded it over to them, because I wouldn't have known they were looking. So, get your name out there. One of my favorite books, and I'm actually reading it at the moment, is Mark Schaefer, and he's a good friend of mine. He's a marketing futurist, and he writes some wonderful books. He does a book called Known, and it's around the benefits of being known by people. And the people that are known the most tend to get the most work. And as much to my disgust that I have to put my name out there and my face out there, and I have to record videos, which has taken a lot of practice, I find the more that I put myself out there, the more I get known, and the more opportunities that fall in my lap. And it is a little bit of a relentless pursuit. But Robert and I talked about this sort of in the last episode. Get your name known to local authorities, to government departments, to defence accelerators, to the people around you, or the people that have connections and know about grants that are coming around. Because if you start getting yourself known beforehand, it's really good for when something comes along. The local authority might already know you. You might have done some to help them out in some way, or done something, or they might just know you and know that you're looking for a grant, so they send it to you. Look at getting yourself out there. And it's really hard when you're a small business because you've got no time, but do it in the best way you can. And it almost goes back to the marketing, making sure you let people know what pain points you're solving, what you're looking to do, how you're looking to help people. Because if you sort of send yourself out into the world, across digital, across networking events, more comes back to you. And I remember reading a long time ago, and it was a bit woo-woo. It was this book called The Secret, and it's around sort of letting the universe know that you're available, and that you're looking for something and you're out there. I can't remember exactly, but now it was a bit, like I said, woo-woo for me. It was a bit not sort of in reality. I don't know if that makes sense, but the theory is kind of correct. But you're not telling the universe, you're telling people. Don't tell the universe, tell people that what you're looking for, what you're out there. And if you love The Secret, sorry, I do like the principles of it. It's that putting yourself out there, letting people know that who you are, what you're doing. Because I remember when I started my business, I hadn't even really started it, but people knew what I did and knew what I offered and how I helped people. And before I'd actually started my business, I had 2 contracts because people had contacted me and went, "What are you doing now?" Because I've been made redundant, and "What are you doing now? Because we've got this contract, and we thought you'd be really good for it." Yeah, I'm not actually doing anything. So they reached out to me, and I had two before I'd even started my business. And I started my business entirely around these 2 contracts that I'd received just from people that I know. So this getting known is really important. And I know, and we are going to have some sessions throughout this on marketing, because that is a huge problem for a lot of people: marketing and sales, getting yourself out there. So we will cover this more. I might see if I can there's a wonderful there's loads of stuff on personal branding, which is fantastic. So I'll see if I can get her on, because that is about how to get yourself known, but in authentic ways that doesn't feel like you're peacocking in front of the screen half the time. So it is difficult. I've also got, so you'd be one of the first to know, you're listening to this, I have a free community that I'm starting, which is for people in STEM industries, and technical industries. They're technicians at heart, like myself, ex-programmer, might be engineers, scientists, and it's for technicians that are transitioning into leaders, business owners. So you've got a business, you love working on the product, you love working on the service, but then you've got to do all of the other bits, similar to what this podcast is helping you with. It's a lovely, calm, lovely environment that allows you to be your natural self. And we're going to have loads of STEM people on there. It in in a community, people that get you, understand that it is difficult running a business as a technician, and even though you want to work on the product, you've got to do the marketing, the sales, the operations, the accountant. Oh, I hate the accountant. Yeah, it's awful. Anything but keep my worst enemy, which is strange because I like sort of maths and spreadsheets and things like that. But I don't know why I've got a mental block when it comes to accountancy. My brain just doesn't like it. And so all the bits that you might not ever trained in or liked, very similar to podcast. And we're gonna, in the community, it'll be a way for you to not only hear advice, but you can ask questions. I've got like weekly challenges, accountability. So if you want to join that, it's not officially open until the 2nd of June. But if you message me, I'll send you a link to it and you can join early because it's all ready and it's all set up. So do please come and join. And it'll be wonderful because you're all lovely STEM people and we'll all get each other and we can all help each other move for our business. Because you know what? And one of the reasons I started this podcast is I don't think people were meant to do this alone. They say it takes a community to raise a child. I think it takes a community to raise a business as well. Going back to John Asperian, who often says you can't see the label from inside the jar. I think the best way to do that is be part of a community. And the communities that I'm in, they definitely give me that outside of the jar perspective. I get wonderful people who help me see outside the jar, give me advice. So this is what my community is about. And the reason I want to just keep it in technical and STEM people is I think that as technicians, there's an extra barrier where you want to work on the thing that you love. If you're a scientist, you love doing the science and engineering. And some of this other stuff is just not as fun. The marketing, the sales, the operation. It's not as fun and it's not what you want to do. So what the idea is with this podcast and with my community is to give you enough knowledge so that what you can do is grow your business to the point that you can get staff to help you with the tasks that you're not enjoying, such as marketing, sales, with the operations. It's the idea is to upskill you enough that you can do this. But I'm not going to turn you into a marketeer. I'm not going to turn you into a salesperson because that's not what you want to do in life. That's not what you want to do. I want you to be able to grow your business enough so that you can get people, so then you can still do the bits you love, and then you can look at the strategic side of the business, where you want it to go and what you want it to do. And that's my goal. I want you to stop working 60-hour weeks. I want you to go on holiday and not worry about the fact that things might fall apart or things might go wrong while you're on holiday. I'm a business owner and I've been there checking my emails and taking my phone with me on holiday, which is frustrating. So the idea of this podcast and then the community that I'm now launching is to give you this support so that you feel more confident and you don't feel like, oh God, am I the only person doing this? Am I just the only person that doesn't get this? Because believe me, as someone who coaches and mentors lots of small businesses, no, most technical businesses do not get how to run a business or hate running a business, even if they get how to do it. Or everyone is in the same boat. You just don't see it on LinkedIn or social media. Everyone looks like they're winning and they're not. It's really frustrating. And here's the honest truth. I've marketed for some of the biggest companies and I still hate doing my own marketing. I find it really hard. And even for someone in the business, it's like a friend of mine whose husband is a plumber and they still have leaky toilets. Sometimes you hate doing your own stuff because you're too inside the jar. So thank you for joining this second episode of Creating the Curve. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll have another wonderful guest next week. And we'll keep on the format going. We'll be every week, and it will be intermittent with a longer episode with a guest, and then a shorter episode with me reflecting on the similar subject to the guest. So thank you for coming to Creating the Curve. If you want to get in contact. I'm on LinkedIn, Anna Bravington. I'm the only Anna Bravington on there, so I'm easy to find. Or you can go to the website creatingthecurve.co.uk and you can join the free community from there once it launches as well. But if you want to come and join, send me a DM or send me a message and come and join, because you are so welcome. And thank you for joining today, and see you in the next episode.